Welcome to the original theory of conspiracy, the inside story. I've dusted off the old recordings for another look at some of my favourite conversations. I've also added fun facts, retrospective thoughts, as well as some insider knowledge on how we create each episode. In some cases, I've trimmed the episodes just to the core conversations. Don't worry, I've kept in all the funny bits like bloopers and some of that banter that we had. If you've listened to us before, I know that by the download figures that some episodes were definitely overlooked, so now's your chance to have another go around. If this is brand new, then welcome. I'm sure you'll find something you enjoy, but strap in for a bumpy ride. If you're wondering where all the other episodes went from seasons 1 and 2, well, unfortunately these needed to be archived due to hosting restrictions and to make room for new content. But you can still find most of our content on the YouTube channel, well, the ones that YouTube decided not to take down for censorship reasons. You'll also find some extra videos on there that were never turned into podcasts. If anyone wants to reach out to us, YouTube is probably the easiest way with a comment, as we no longer really monitor the other social media accounts. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback. Just a quick warning, this starts off very explicit. So this week we're going to have a look back at the Bob Lazar episode from 2020. It was season 2, episode 5. I chose this episode because Bob's got another documentary out. It's called Bob Lazar S4. We're actually talking about the Jeremy Corbell version, which was on Netflix at the time. I'm not sure if it's still there. This is one of our episodes where we introduce guests. I forgot that we actually had a little litmus test for each guest where I asked them 3 questions. It was the same 3 questions for each guest, and I think I scored them 3 points if they were fully committed to the question, 0 if they weren't, and if they were yes on all 3 questions, they could get a bonus point, so they could get a total of 10 out of 10. So in this case, I gave a half point or 1.5 points on the moon landing question because Jason was a bit 50-50 on it. This is also when we started to have bloopers. They used to be at the end of the podcast, but in season 2, I think I put them before the main conversation, so I've left those in. And I'll be really quick on some insights or updates since we recorded this, because I've not cut any of the conversation down because I thought it was too good, and there's just over an hour to listen to as it is. But one thing I want to mention is we talk about the periodic table and predicting elements. Examples of elements that have been predicted before they were discovered are gallium, scandium, rhenium. They're just 3 I could find with just Google searching. And there's also a couple of points where Carl brings up money as an influence for Bob Lazar, saying how he never talks about it. And then we also discussed what his current net worth was at the time. Again, we only really had Google available to us back in 2020, whereas today we've got AI and stuff. So I think we quote $500,000 net worth. If you want to stick that into Google AI or ChatGPT right now and find out, I did it the other week and I got the AI to focus just purely on his book sales because all those figures are publicly available on the World Wide Web. And just based on his average book price, it came out at $10 million worth of book sales, which is quite a large number. So I also asked for his net worth on his current laboratory, and I think that was coming out at about $5 million US. So unfortunately, that probably damages Carlos's argument about Bob's not in it for the money, sorry, because there was clearly a lot of money there with the new technology and research that you can quickly get your hands on. Okay, that's really it. I have watched the Bob Lazar S4 documentary that came out this year. I think it's probably the best version of anything I've seen. I think it's really well done. I think if I wasn't a skeptic, I'd be tempted to believe some of this stuff now. I think it's really well done. For me though, because I've done all the research and I've done all that research in the past, there's nothing new in there that stands up. I think a lot of the things we mention on this podcast chat aren't even mentioned in the new documentary because they're just a little bit out there. So it tends to be a little bit more focused. They don't play the FBI card where they're doing these raids on him every time they speak to the media. I think it's a little less busy. And like I say, with someone coming onto the subject with no knowledge whatsoever, who hasn't done any of their own research or doesn't go away and do any of their own research, is probably going to find the new documentary quite believable.
Welcome to Theory of Conspiracy. A couple of northern lads from the UK discuss plots, cover-ups, and the unexplainable.
Hi, I'm Andy the Skeptic.
Hello, I'm Carlos. I believe.
If you would like to support the podcast, please talk about this with your friends or give us a review on iTunes.
And I didn't see my shoes, fucking fell near the toilet, went and smacked my fucking head on the fucking side of the basin.
You're losing control of your faculties. You're only 55.
He did that 2 weeks ago as well. You know?
Did I?
I know.
It's an occurring thing.
I think.
Come.
Yeah, I think he's in one of these abusive relationships, and he's just making excuses
With himself.
Gets beaten up every day.
Schizophrenic who's in an abusive relationship with himself. Is that what it is?
Yeah, like Tyler Durden.
Fucking, I've got it all bunched up and I've written it all fucking down.
What, have you written it in ketchup?
Right,
It's all smudged.
No.
Crayon.
Right, 1 second. Right, I'm gonna get it on me. I'm gonna get it on my iPad.
Have you been on Jeremy Kyle, Jay?
No.
Using polygraph.
No. But can I just say that, or you say the polygraph only works if you want to believe in it, and so does this documentary.
Oh, we might have to end it there, Jay.
Listen up, this is the main bit.
Some people say he only drinks molten lava and that he's a better goalkeeper than David De Gea. All we know is he's called, well, before we reveal any more names or any more details, we need to conduct a quick tinfoil hat rating with the TheoCon litmus test. So I've got 3 yes or no questions so the listener can gauge your tinfoil hat rating on a scale of 0 to 10. So one word answers only. Was 9/11 an inside job?
No.
Did we land on the moon?
I say yeah, but then there's a lot of evidence out there pointing the other way. So I'd like to, I think yeah, I'd like to believe yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't.
Do you believe aliens in spaceships have visited the Earth?
100%.
You have scored 4.5 on
What's that out for? 4.5 out of what? Out of 1,000 or out of 5?
Out of 10.
Okay. Not bad.
With a score of 4.5, and bearing in mind that according to recent stats, the podcast literally gets 2 listeners a week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell us who you are and what you do, or would you rather remain anonymous?
I think what I do is irrelevant, to be honest. My name's Jason, but it's no one's interested in what I do. I work, I survive, I breathe in and out, I do things. I'm here to speak about the podcast. Let's do it.
Cool. A bit of this and a bit of that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, yeah.
He's a very talented writer. You are a very talented writer, Jay. I've known Jay since I was probably 12, 13 years old when we first met when we used to play football as kids. But yeah, Jay's a very talented writer, so you should read his stuff. But you should plug your stuff, Jay.
I do my best. I'm all right. There's no point plugging my stuff to the people who are in a position to do something about it.
Tell us something interesting about yourself that only one or a few people might know about you.
I was born on Friday the 13th and I carry the same name as the killer in the film.
Is that true?
Yeah. Another one is everybody's arm spans generally 3 inches below the height, or within 3 inches, are actually the same height as themselves, but my arm span is actually 4 inches bigger than my height. So there's another fact about me, which is probably why I ended up goalkeeping. Could have made a fortune in strawberry picking, but never went down them lanes.
So you're a bit of a freak of nature then, aren't you?
Yeah. You know what? Some people say it can be a sign of being inbred, but my mum swears that it's not. But yeah, it's not very common, but I've got very long arms, monkey arms.
I'm looking forward to this because Jay, I've known Jay since I was 12, 13, because I know me and Jay speak for hours on all subjects from football to politics and religion. So I'm interested to see what Jay thinks of this subject. Today we're discussing about Area 51 and more specifically Bob Lazar and his extraordinary claims. For those who have not heard of Bob Lazar, born Robert Scott Lazar on the 26th of January 1959 in Florida, US. Bob claimed to have examined alien crafts that ran on antimatter reactors powered by element 115, which at the time had not been synthesized. He also claimed to have read US government briefing documents that describe alien involvement in human affairs over the last 10,000 years. Lazar's claim brought added public attention to Area 51, fueled by countless conspiracy theories surrounding classified activities. Lazar's story has since been analysed and rejected by skeptics and some ufologists. Universities from which he claimed to have held degrees show no records of him. Supposed former workplaces have disavowed him. In 1990, he was convicted of his involvement in prostitution rings, and again in 2006 for selling illegal chemicals.
Right, Jason, you're our guest, so you're familiar with Bob Lazar and the documentary on Netflix and the interview he's done on Joe Rogan, and possibly other stuff you've heard since the late 1980s. Where do you want to start with it?
Where do you start with it? It's such a packed full story, really. There's loads to speak about. I mean, we start with the fact that he claims that he done work within this Area 51 site. It was S4. It was S4, wasn't it? I think it was called, the part where he was working.
He doesn't call it. He doesn't like calling it Area 51.
Yeah.
He always corrects people and says actually it was S4.
Yeah. I mean, anyways,
it's next door to Area 51.
Yeah,
well, it's part of the Area 51 complex. If you depending which interview you listen to him say. But yeah,
it is part of it. I mean, and this is a guy who, like Carlos said in the intro, who his claims to have had degrees and to at certain places are refuted, and there's no records of him being at the university. They're saying that he's not got any kind of qualifications in what he was doing, so he wouldn't have been asked down to work on these spacecraft. But if you look at it, I mean, this is a guy who's obviously clever. This is a guy who put together like jet-propelled go-karts and stuff. He's obviously had some kind of qualifications from somewhere. Some of the stuff he was doing, what was coming up on his local paper, it's not the kind of thing that you learn on your own. He didn't have any family members like a dad who was teaching him how to do it. He's learnt this stuff in school through education, is what he said. And from that, he's been asked to go into Area 51, the S4, and then they completely deny it for here and in. But there are people who've come forward since his existence has been wiped off the face of the education system, and they've said that, like, yes, he was. They went to college with him. There's people who worked at Los Alamos who swear that, yes, he worked at Los Alamos as well. So he speaks about things in there what he can't know about. And people speak about him, but the government says that he doesn't exist.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just take your first point, because that seemed to be mostly around his credentials.
Yeah.
Right, his credentials. You did mention that people have come forward, etc.
Yes.
However, the documentary doesn't name any names.
No, that is true. And yeah, you're right there.
Yeah, and he refuses to mention any names on Joe Rogan as well.
In fact, there is a guy from Los Alamos who they do name a guy. I forget his name, but
the
security guy, yeah.
The security guy that it's near impossible to find any information out on him. And then on the interview,
is that Mr. Thinkpen or Mr. Penn Think? So something Thinkpen, isn't it? Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
But I think that's somebody who worked there who says he does claim to have known him, but I'm sure it was somebody else. I mean, I might be wrong, but I'm sure it was somebody else who they chased up, who worked there, who said that, well, confirmed they worked there. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things what he says in it which are, it's only him actually claiming it, and he hasn't got evidence to back it up. But if it's coming from an area like Area 51 and it's so secretive and people don't want you to know, then it's going to be hard for people to come forward, because I'm sure that they all sign disclaimer forms. I'm sure that people are scared. I'm sure that they could be financially rewarded for keeping their mouth shut and whatever that. And some of them, they just don't want to be ridiculed, simple as. But then again,
Yeah.
it could all be in his head. You don't know. Whether or not it is or not, it's a great story, which we're going to speak about.
If another person at Area 1 was to come out now and backed everything up that he said and had credentials, then they wouldn't be ridiculed, would they? Because they'd have Bob as evidence. He'd be backing up Bob's story, etc. And you know what? These people that could back up his college stories, these people that might have dropped him off there, or he hung around with at college or at Alamo, right? He has got he can bag some evidence there. Now, he says on the Rogan interview, every time he mentions someone, something bad happens to them. Doesn't say what the bad thing is, right?
Did he not say things like they get into financial problems, or they've been threatened, or they've been intimidated?
There's more than one way to skin a cat. We're not saying that they're all going to get killed, because you can't go around killing everybody, because it'll just look very, very suspect. But they can get you in other ways. They can force you to be quiet and do what they want in other ways. And I've just looked there and we noticed it was Mike Finkpenny, who was a government official there. Yeah, that's who it was.
That was it. I think he might have been more for the entrance into Area 51. But if you think about it, right, so Bob says, I'm not going to mention any more people because these bad things can happen. Although he never says, I mean, if he does have evidence of people that he's mentioned in the past, I'd like to know who they are, because I don't know any names. They might be out there. I've not dug deep enough to find these names. But if they are out there, you know, where are the details, what actually happened to them? And then what he could do is, you go, okay, right, so I've got another person I could mention, right? What I can do is, before I mention any names, we get a full background and everything on them, and a load of detail, and you can send what's his name? You can send Jeremy Corbell off to go and interview him before he mentions his name, and get everything down right. See if he's willing, then mention him and say, right, this guy's backing me up, blah blah blah, corroborates the story, and then they just sit back and watch. And if anything happens to him, like IRS checks out of the blue, or whatever these bad things are that could happen to him, or his credentials start getting deleted or whatever, then that is evidence that actually the FBI or the CIA, whoever, are taking notice, and he basically can produce his own evidence, because people would look and go, Bob said that would happen, and it has happened to his mate.
Yeah,
there's got to be something going.
That's very true. It is a good way to qualify it. But also, I mean, when you're saying to chase up people you work with, they basically put on the bus and drove in there. He was saying that he only had access to certain points of these crafts that he was supposedly working on. I don't know whether they'll know the full names of the people he was working with. You don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, he says he doesn't. That guy he said he worked with, he only knew his first name. But I'm not talking about Area 51. I'm talking about just his college. To prove that he went to the college, so they can sit there and go, yeah, he was in such and such class.
Yeah.
Sat in the row before me, sat in the row behind me, whatever. There's bound to be people that have got stories of him and know him.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, if you want to take it down that road, it's surely you must have some kind of, I don't know, something from the college himself, a picture, a photograph from that time taken with somebody there. There must be some evidence out there, and that wasn't shown. You're right, that wasn't shown. Also, which wasn't shown in the documentary, was when he said that the FBI had been to his house during the filming.
Yeah.
They've been to his house during the film, and he said that they've been chasing him for years, and every now and then they turn up on his doorstep and they do a search and they make that life difficult for him. But didn't actually see anything. It was just, the FBI have been. It was a text message sent saying the FBI are here. So
when I started watching that, Jay, right, that was the first thing in the documentary, and it's Jeremy looking at his phone in it, and he's getting these texts off Bob saying the FBI have just raided me, and they throw in some pictures of some woman wearing an FBI jacket, which obviously can't be genuine.
No,
because why would you get the picture of the back of someone going through a doorway? When would he ever be in that position where there's just one person, no one else is looking at? If he got his phone out and started taking pictures, the FBI would all be all over it.
Yeah, they'd take his phone, wouldn't they?
Exactly. And again, this lends very real evidence and credulence to his story. If he could have a I mean, that was a tiny little small town where his little business is. That would be big news.
Yeah.
If 4 or 5 FBI cars and trucks turned up.
Yeah.
Even if the newsreaders didn't know anything about it, that would be in the local paper, and he'd go, "Here you go, Jeremy."
Yeah.
This was February the 3rd when they came and they and to be honest, that is another thing he could quite easily replicate, because they led you to believe in that documentary because they, for some reason, they went out into the middle of the woods, had this conversation, just the two of them, where he says, "I want this on record. We're going to store it in a vault, and we'll only get it out if we need it." It's like, why are you even having this conversation? And then next thing, it fast forwards, so you don't hear any of the conversation. And then they get the phone out and go, "Oh, is your phone still on?" And then the next day, it was staged. I'm convinced that was staged. The next day, the FBI raid. Right, so if that happens in the film, again, why can't he just contact someone, right? So apparently, it's well documented that he's talked about smuggling element 115 out of Area 51 30 years ago, and supposedly this is why the FBI raided him, to try and find it. Why doesn't he go, "Jeremy, I'm going to meet you at such and such a place. It's where the 115 is located. Meet me there. I'll show you, and I'll show you an experiment to prove that it's 115, right?" Why doesn't he say that on some sort of open communication channel, right? But before he says it, they set a place up. Whether he's got it or not, they just set a place up, and you have 100 cameras on all different angles from all different ranges pointing at this building, wherever it is you're going to say you're going to meet up, or whether it's in the middle of the woods. Bang! If the FBI turn up to get the 115, you've got them on tape.
Yeah.
It's evidence. He could manufacture that evidence, and that would go, "Oh my God, Bob,
yeah,
you're so telling the truth." And they wouldn't find anything because you've staged it.
Yeah, you're right on what you're saying. I mean, when I seen that part of the documentary, I did think that it's been added to add a little bit of meat to the bone, a bit of credibility to the story. I didn't believe it for 1 minute, because I just thought it was just a kind of empty vessel threw in there for them to drive in, and it didn't add up. For me, it kind of decredited it. More than adding credibility to it, because you were thinking you seem right through what was going on for me. But again, I mean, no, but again, I mean, that could be the fact that they're just thinking, right, what's different from the story that's been told? What can we say on air which hasn't already been said? Well, we can't really say much because it's already been said. But what we can do is say that the FBI is still following you, and all these years after, and that's what actually makes it even more believable. So that's our hook to sell the actual documentary.
Yeah, but even though they can't provide any evidence of it, Carlos, go on. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Did he actually say he's got element 115? Does he actually say?
Yeah.
He said it.
Yeah.
He said he's got.
He said at the beginning, years ago, he said he had element 115. Now he won't confirm whether he's got it or not. Now, if the FBI are involved, if they haven't got him on camera for whatever reason or that, but if that did happen, that raid, I do believe then that he's definitely got the element 115. I really do, and I think
so he has the ability to recreate 115.
I don't think he's got the ability to recreate it.
No,
because no one knows how to recreate it.
No, I think what he's done, he's got it
according to the stories.
Yeah, because the whole reason behind these stories, what he's saying, he says time and time again that why would he say this story? Why would he discredit himself so much? Why would he put his family, himself up for ridicule? And the reason behind it is because of the technology that's there, which is, he says is there. He says, that it can change the world. This what they've got, but they're keeping it under wraps. They're suppressing it, and it shouldn't be allowed. And by having this element 115, maybe he's trying to recreate these kind of crafts elsewhere, or something, some kind of technology with this element 115, and that's why he's keeping hold of it. And that's like a lifelong quest of his to do so. Who's to say he's not got an underground layer underneath that little lab what he's got there in the middle of nowhere? I'd like to think he has. You know what I mean? That he goes in the toilet and then presses a button and goes down into it. But that's the reason being. For me, if he's got the element 115, I think he's trying to do things with it to then come out with the irrefutable evidence and to say to the world, look, here's what we've got. This is what we can do, and the government's not allowing us. Why aren't they allowing us to do it?
Because that's the key to his story, because he always talks about advancing humanity, finding better energy sources. That he never talks about making money. He never talks about building an empire. That's why I like Bob Lazar, because some of the stories he talks about, it's a bit like Gary McKinnon. They don't talk about making money. They talk about getting information out there. So I was going to sort of ask you a question then, Jay. So say, for example, that's his goal, is to get this 115 element and then give it to the world for free. Do you think that's what he's looking to do, or do you think he's trying to make money out of it, say through book sales or through his own commercial businesses he's got?
They don't know how to replicate 115,
no,
a stable version of it, full stop. So that's not on the agenda. I mean, I did some background digging into making money out of stuff, but before I go into that, what I did want to say, probably at the top of the show, but I'll say it now before we go any further, is, for me, Bob Lazar is the most credible UFO witness there is, period. Whether it's intentional or not, Bob's always lets other people do the talking for him, or should I say, the editing of his interviews, and his story. For example, George Knapp originally, who broke the story, and even so 89. much as the this documentary with Jeremy, and then I keep wanting to say Jeremy Corbyn, but it's Jeremy Corbell, and and Joe Rogan, and he's not one of those ufologists or he doesn't appear to be one of those ufologists that's seeking fame and fortune, and he's pushy with their story. The type of person that will just push it wherever and whenever they can.
Would you class him as a ufologist? I wouldn't class him as a ufologist.
Why? Well, what's the difference between what Bob does?
He just looks at technology not of this world.
He's got to be a ufologist, because he talks about seeing 9 UFOs and being on one and studying one.
No, he's not seen 9. He's not seen 9. He says he's been told there's 9. He's not seen. I think he's only seen 1 or 2.
His story. He says, I can't remember if it was in the Rogan or whether it was on the documentary on Netflix. He says one day he went into the hangar, and one day all the doors were open between these interconnecting hangars, and he saw right down, and he saw 9 UFOs, and he describes, I don't even remember this, but he describes like one has got a hole in it. He doesn't say the words, but he lets you think that the way he describes it, it's been shot down by the military.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
we'll come to that later on. Getting shot down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely want to cover that one. Definitely want to cover that one.
Yeah. So back to the original thing I said. Yeah, I don't think he's a ufologist. I think he's someone who just looks for technology not of this world.
But I'm right in what you're saying. He is credible. You hear him speaking. He's calm. He's very eloquent. He gets his story across. He doesn't come across as some fanatic, some idiot, someone who's trying to make money out of it. And it's like he's putting it out there, and it's like, you believe it or not. That's what I know. That's what I see. I mean, there's certain things which do back up his story. I mean, that's one element 15, is that he said it years ago. And people, waiting people's, I don't think it existed when he actually mentioned it years ago.
No, it didn't. In the 80s, it wasn't simulated until 2003, and then again in 2004, which is when it was named, because they weren't sure in 2003. So looking at the periodic table in the 80s, 90s, there were gaps, right? But even back then, and scientists use this to discover some elements. You could look at the periodic table, and every single element on the periodic table, the difference between them is its atomic weight increases by 1.
Right.
So they were able to, and this is yeah. So they were able to then predict certain elements. So they would look at the periodic table back in the early in the Victorian time, early 1900s, when it was first being established, the periodic table, especially elements like gases that are just in the air at the moment, they were able to pinpoint a few because you could do simple scientific experiments to like isolate oxygen and isolate nitrogen and things because they burn at different colors, or you can boil liquids at certain temperatures and then it gives off the gas, and you can isolate the gas and you can experiment with it to prove that gas I've isolated there behaves differently to this gas over here. For example, nitrogen and helium, they both float, but they've got, hydrogen is highly explosives.
Science, science a bit.
So there's all these different experiments you can do. And looking at the periodic table, going back to that, they could see these gaps and they would go, oh, actually, we've got element 1, 2, 3, 4. We've not got 5. I'm just making this up. But we've got 6 and 7. There must be 1 in 5. So let's do some experiments and try and isolate it. And that's how they found a lot more elements over the years.
Yeah.
And in the 80s, they got to it and they went, right, we've got all these up to the 80s, 90s, but we've got these gaps. We didn't have 115. We didn't have 117. There was a few others in the teens, in the 100 and teens area. And it's so easy. If you're going to come up with a story, I'm going to pick an element that it's got to exist because we knew about 118. So there's got to be an element before 118 that's still missing and undiscovered.
Yeah, so
I'm just going to call it 115.
So it's just,
and it will be discovered.
This element is designed for flight. It's energy. It's designed for flight.
They don't know anything about the element, Carlos. No one has been able to replicate it.
It's not designed
for more than 400ths of a second. Because
it's pure energy. It's pure energy.
No, it doesn't.
It's not. What it is it's radioactive. Every element over 90. Hold on, I made a note of it. Every single element over 93 is radioactive. Element 94 is radioactive, and all the ones up are which means they've got half-lives, which means they don't last very long. Well, some do, like plutonium, because the half-life is 250 years, right? So every 250 years, its mass reduces by 50%. And then another 250 years, its mass reduces by 50%. Now, if you've only got a couple of atoms of 115, its half-life is very short, which is why it's very hard to make a stable version of it, or enough of it to be stable. And they produce it by smashing other atoms together, which their combined total adds up to 115, and it just so happens to have all the right neutrons and protons and everything. This is exactly how they make these objects. You can go and ask Professor Brian Cox,
Bob Lazar,
and his hadron collider. So they smash these elements together, they stick together for a little bit, and they produce these. They produce 115, but they only produced a couple of atoms of it, and literally its half-life was so small it died within, I think it's 400 milliseconds. If you look at it, so to create a stable version of it, you would need a lot of it.
Yeah,
and it would be, and Bob says it wasn't radioactive, this element. So, but why are all the other elements in that range all radioactive? Yet Bob says, oh yeah, well we got this 115 and it wasn't radioactive.
I don't know. I'm not sure on that. I don't profess to be a physicist, to be honest. I have a layman's grasp on it, so I don't know why you would say it, for what reason and how to counteract that and how to disclaim. I mean, what you've just said there makes perfect sense, but I can't answer. You're right what you're saying. It does sound like it can be forecast easy by someone for a future event, and maybe that's what
we could forecast 1. We could forecast 120 right now, couldn't we?
Yeah. It's true.
Because the periodic table goes up to 119. We could forecast 120, and it might be discovered in 4 years. It might be discovered in 400 years. You don't know.
You can forecast pretty much anything. You say it, and at some point in the future, it's going to happen, unless it's something.
Well, that's what science is.
Yeah, but
science is the best guess, isn't it?
But apart from that, I mean, take that. I'm just talking about its credibility. Yeah, things that do or perceived to back it up. Is the element 115. There was the hand scanner, which he said at the beginning. He described his hand scanner, and nobody seemed to know what it was. But it was being used by high top-end security government officials, and
it's been confirmed as being used in Area 51 on the B-52 bomber
Yeah,
project.
yeah. So he's got that right. Mike Thinkpen was a government official there. They chased him up supposedly. They've confirmed that he worked there. Although again, they said that they confirmed it, but they didn't offer no evidence that they found him.
No evidence of it.
They just said, yeah, we found him. Then there was ENG who recruited for S4, and that's been verified that they did used to recruit for, or they still do recruit for Area 51. So I mean, all these things, he knew all these things, and you're thinking, well, how did he know all these things? If he didn't work there, how did he know? Did somebody tell him in a bar? Whilst he was drinking there or something? You don't know. But it's a story that has come up with. There's a lot of detail. The detail doesn't ever seem to change. He's pretty bang on with what he says all the time, which is, it's the sign of the truth. If someone's lying, then there will be little changes in the story. That's what they say.
Do you remember the start of the interview on the Netflix documentary? And Jeremy, first of all, goes to George. He phones George up, and George is saying, yeah, I can put you in contact with Bob, but it depends, depends what mood he's in. He might just walk away. He doesn't want nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
This image of Bob doesn't like talking about it because I don't want to be centre of attention. I don't want money from it. I don't want, he doesn't want the fame and fortune, and he's had a lot of bad press over the years, and it's ruined his life supposedly, and he doesn't want to talk about it. And I was thinking, well, he obviously has talked to you, Jeremy, because you've got a film about it.
Yeah.
What marvelous look that is.
Well, I think that was actually done afterwards, just for the camera. Myself.
Well, again, and just the reason why it was probably done for the camera is it's they're trying to add credibility again.
Yeah.
So who are you going to believe, right? Are you going to believe a man stood on a stage telling you some incredible story, or a man, right, who you have to, in the pub or whatever, and he's got a story to tell, but you don't know what it is, and you have to plead with him to get it out of him because he doesn't want to tell you about it? What sounds more credible? Someone willing to throw it at you and ram it down your neck, or someone you've got to tease it out of? Now,
yeah,
we're not teasing it out, but they're putting in this image that they've had to tease it out of him with these stories.
I mean, you don't know. They could have teased it out of him, but then this being added on. Oh, the phone call saying, "I'll try." It depends what mood he's in. They could have spent weeks, months, years trying to get this story, and then he's finally gone. Yeah, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Okay. He's checked out the people and thought, right, I'll do it. So it could be that. You never know. I mean, we don't know how it came about happening.
Let's assume it took him a while to get him to talk about it, and then he talks about it freely, right? And then they go and redo that conversation for the the credibility, as it were.
Yeah.
But if Bob is that type of person that really doesn't want to talk about it, he said himself, "I don't like being in the public eye. I don't get any money from this." Does that sound like someone to you who would attend UFO conventions like UFO Fest? He's booked to attend in 2021, or the International UFO Congress in 2015.
What has he been booked to attend there?
He's down. If you Google UFO Fest 2021, he's down as a guest.
Right.
And he was a guest. He was a guest at the one. He's probably guessed at more. These are just two I found by googling it.
He was dormant for quite a while though. Bob Lazar. It was about 10-15 years. It was completely dormant.
Yeah.
It's since
I
these
agree.
since these documentaries, these podcasts have become worldwide. Obviously,
2015 was before the recent interview, though, wasn't it?
But I think Jeremy Corbell's been trying to sort of get Bob Lazar sort of to do these documentaries for about 2 or 3 years, because now with all these.
Have you heard him say that? Because I've not heard him say that. Or are you just guessing that he's trying to do that? Are you trying to?
No, Jeremy Corbell has been a fanatic because he's obviously he's a filmmaker. So he's actually said for the last 2 or 3 years he's been working with Bob Lazar and what's that Commander Fravor? Is it David Fravor? Who also mentions it in the.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that was also on the list. So So
that's about that. He's been looking for these people for about 3 or 4 years. So that means he's obviously this Netflix. How long does a Netflix documentary take to make? Probably about anything from 6 months to a year. And you've got to plan it in when's the best time to release it.
You could do it in weeks, mate. To be honest,
I don't think it's been in the bag. I think it was made in 2017, and it was released in the same year. Maybe 2018 it was released. You mentioned Commander Kramer there, right? He's the Tic Tac UFO guy, right? Bob said on the Joe Rogan podcast, I've recently talked to him. Why would Bob be taught? He tells you these stories of these people that have seen UFO here, there, and everywhere, and they want to come and talk to him, and he doesn't like it. Yet he will talk to the Tic Tac Toe guy. Why would he talk to them, but not other people that have had experiences?
They're probably all friends. They're presuming the 3 or 4 of them, between George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, obviously Bob, and they're probably just sort of come and meet Bob Lazar. Bob's got this story, try and match up each other's stories and what he's seen. Because Commander David Fravor talks about a object or craft, whatever you want to call it, went from 60,000 feet down to 0 feet within less than a second. And obviously,
let's not get into the Kramer thing. But I agree.
But it does actually say, and he started comparing to Bob Lazar about the technology. And that's where Bob Lazar talks about technology.
Right. Is that the one? I don't think it was the one. There was what? There's something. I'm going off tangent here a little bit. But there was a UFO sighting which came out within the last year. It was all over social media, and it was part of the American UFO. What American files being declassified, and it was a pilot, and you see it, and you see this object going, and it's like up on its end, and the way it's flying is the same as what Bob Lazar says about these UFOs. He says they don't fly like you see them in the movies, like people think they fly. He says they fly on the bellies forward, and this one in this footage which was released, because as soon as I heard him say that, I just immediately thought of that. And he'd said that before this footage had come out. So it links up the way they were flying. And if I'm looking at a UFO, I would never have thought, they fly on the belly and like that. I always think they're spinning around and they fly flat. So
I would like to know exactly the first time, and I don't think we're going to be able to find it, but the first time that Bob says that, because that Tic Tac UFO footage is actually quite old and has been around on the internet for quite a few years.
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, unless
early 2000s, wasn't it? Was it early,
I think
early
it
2000s?
was. I think it was. Yeah, it was 2000 something. It was early 2000. Unless someone can show me something where Bob mentioned that in the 90s when he was doing all his TV interviews, I'll go, okay, yeah, Bob did say it first, but he was very excited when he started talking towards the end of the Rogan podcast, when they were just summarising about other stuff, and they did mention the Tic Tac Toe, and this is when I got the quote from him where he said, I've recently talked to him on it. He was supposedly had this migraine going into the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
And he proper perked up as soon as they were off the subject of him trying to recall his days and repeat the information that he he was basically Joe. Joe's like, he interviews him. He's saying, right, just for the listeners that haven't heard, you said this in 1980 something, and you said that in 1990 something, and he's getting him to recall, and all the time he's recalling, there's a couple of bits where he's recalling stuff, and he's falling over himself, and he starts blaming this migraine. Oh yeah, he had a migraine coming in the car. That's convenient.
Andy, if I ask anybody, or if I ask you to recall something from last week, and then say, okay, then the week after say, what did you say last week? It's hard to remember. It really.
I agree.
Everybody will trip themselves up trying to think back, and maybe it's the fact that he's thinking, I need to get this right, and I don't want to say anything which is wrong because I remember it differently, because he's just going to make me look like an idiot. So he's kind of treading water. Anyone in that situation would do that.
That's the way the human mind works.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't make him look an idiot. It would make him look like this isn't a story that's been rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. But what my point is, as soon as they get off the, I mean, migraines don't just come and go like that. But as soon as they get into they're just talking shit. They're just talking about anything, and he can. What's the word I'm looking for? He can
relax.
He's not he is relaxed. You can tell he relaxes, and he's smiling a lot more the way he's talking.
Yeah, because there's less pressure on what he's saying. We're not listening to what's coming out of his mouth. Then
you're just throwing out ideas. He's not saying this is how a UFO works 100%. He's, when they're talking about that, he's saying, he's summarizing about these different types of technologies. He's saying, oh, I don't know. We didn't know how it worked, but it could work like this. It could work like that. And when you're just summarizing stuff out and you don't have to back it with any evidence, he does become really relaxed, and he's happy, and he's smiling, and he looks like he's enjoying the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I thought the migraine story is another bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so convenient. But on a live show.
Yeah. Go on. Yeah. Also, on the flip side, in the documentary, 43 minutes in, they ask him, about is he lying, and he says, he lays out. He says, what motivation have I got? I don't want fame or fortune. And he goes speaks about what we said before about he wants this technology out in the open. And I watched it closely, and I stopped it, and I paused it, and I rewound it. And when I rewound it, I'm no body language expert, but the veins in his neck were proper popping out. You could see him really popping out. And he as if to say, "How dare you?" How dare you ask? Well, not how dare you ask me, but you could sense the frustration in him. It's like, I'm telling the truth. Stop asking me why would I lie. I'm telling the truth. Now, if I'm lying or whatever, it's like if I don't know if you're lying, you don't get that amount. For me, you don't get that amount of build up of pressure in your veins because you're saying it. You're thinking about it, but his veins are proper popping out of his neck when he says it. And I thought that was interesting. Maybe that happens anyway. Maybe it can be that you can do that. I don't know. But at that point, I didn't see it at any point apart from them, and I thought it was interesting that happened physically.
We keep saying that he's not making any money from this thing, but
we don't know that.
Do you know? Do you know? I mean, I know he didn't make anything from the Joe Rogan, and he says, I wouldn't even let you buy me a plane ticket. But who's to say that he's Jeremy's not bought him his plane ticket for him, or maybe he did pay his plane ticket, but he got a good deal out of the Netflix documentary, so it's worth going on these shows and help plugging it. What do you think his net worth is? He runs this little, him and his mate, or him and his little assistant run this little tiny shop. Not a shop. It's a little tiny pharmaceutical lab, and they supply
fireworks.
They supply well, he makes fireworks, doesn't he? But they supply chemicals, don't they? That's the main thing. He supplies chemicals to high schools and other chemistry.
But I thought they do fireworks as well.
Yeah, he does say. Yeah, he did say he got into fireworks. He does. It's part of the same thing because he can get hold of the chemicals to build them, so he does it. But go on, what do you think his net worth is? I'll look this up on the internet.
I'll go first on. I say about $1 million then, a couple of million.
I wouldn't. I don't know. I have no idea. Tell me, surprise me.
$500,000. So 500,000. 500. Okay. So he's not mega rich, but 500,000. Yep. That's pretty. That's pretty good. That's a good living. That.
But when they're calculating these net worths, that can be your property. So they put your property into that. So his property could be worth half. He's been in it for years, and you know what I mean. And he was a scientist, so he says we don't know what his wife was. I don't know, but if they're holding two good jobs, and they've been in the property for 25 years, and they were in a nice area anyway, they could easily have a £500,000 house. It happens.
Yeah. What about George Knapp? So George Knapp, I would argue, has made a lot more money off Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, George Knapp is worth up to about $5 million. I reckon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know about the new guy. I don't know about Jeremy. I didn't look at him.
Well, maybe when we're speaking about, if he was keeping quiet and he's not all about the fame and fortune, maybe he wasn't. Maybe his sole drive it is to bring this out in the open. But maybe he's at a point in his life where his business isn't that great. You know, he's looking at he's coming towards retirement. He's thinking, I've not got a lot of money here. You know, I mean, we don't know whether he got a pension or whatever, and maybe he's just thought it's time to get on the gravy train. Let's make some money out of this. Let's sell this story. I've been quiet about it for so long. People want to hear it. People keep asking me to tell it, so let's do it.
Maybe it's not the money that's the motivation for him. Maybe he's one of these weirdos that just likes the attention because he's got attention for it. Whether he likes it, you know, for a guy that doesn't want to talk about it, he was awfully smiley talking about it on his on the documentary on the Joe Rogan.
Do you think he was?
I don't think he was.
Very happy, smiling.
I don't think he was. I don't think he was.
I think no. I got the impression that it was something that he was passionate about, and the smiling was coming out of the fact that it was he was passionate about the subject. But I didn't think it was like, yeah, we're having a laugh, and you know, this is what we're doing. I just think that was like a natural reaction because he's speaking about stuff that is beyond belief, and his like eyes were lighting up, and when your eyes are lighting up, you will automatically smile because that's what your expressions do. They're all linked. But I don't think he was like overjoyed to be like, yeah, we're here, let's speak about it, and not throw anything at me.
No, not in that way. No, not in that way. But I mean, I thought I sort of described it as like he always had this little smirk, this little, and I think even when they showed the old footage of him, where it was blacked out on the news, but obviously George Knapp released the unblacked out version, didn't he?
When he was when he was Dennis.
Yeah, when he was Dennis, and I remember it. I remember the story when it came out, when it was this guy called Dennis before he released his name. That's how early I was on it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was into my UFO magazine days back in the very early 90s, it was Dennis then. I'm not sure when he came out as Bob, but yeah, there was a bit where they cut the interview and then he gets out of the car and you can clearly see it's him getting out of the car.
Yeah.
Because that was the original footage that George Knapp had.
Oh yeah, but once you know it's him, his silhouette and that, it's pretty obvious it's him. Once you know it's him, isn't it? But if you don't know who he is, you don't know who the shadowy figure is. But it's like one of those. You see in magazines sometimes, like little quizzes, who's this, and it'll have silhouettes of different people, and you got to guess who it is. Pretty obvious who it is. But I mean that's his credibility and stuff and all that. But there's plenty more to speak about, isn't there? About the actual crafts and other stuff, what we can touch on.
Yeah.
But also, something really interesting. He's not changed his story for the last 30 plus years. His story has pretty much maintained.
Yeah, he has. What he's not done is he's not started adding to it. But you know, he can't change his story that much because then that does him in, doesn't it?
He's actually took stuff away from his story. He speaks about the time when he was walking through the corridors, and at the beginning years ago, he said that he thought he saw an alien. But he said he looks in a little window for a millisecond, and there was two army men or two generals, and they were talking down to what he thought was a small figure. But now he doesn't. He kind of backs away from that. He says he's not sure he saw that.
He's saying it might have been a prosthetic, and they were just putting it in the seat to work out how big this creature would have been in the seat. But he's still the way he talks about it is he's quite clever, isn't he? He lets you come up with the answers. He sort of talks about.
He leaves
stuff.
the gaps.
Again, if I was gonna tell lies, I would leave gaps so that you guys could fill it. And because if your brain's filling it, you think you've come up with it, and I've not put words in your mouth. Therefore, you're more likely to believe it.
Well, that gap left my brain working overdrive, to be honest. about the little alien, because he speaks about that, and then he speaks about let's just say it's true. That he did see it, and I did think. I mean, I've watched the documentary a couple of times. The first time I watched it afterwards, I thought to myself, "Is he saying that he didn't see it now because it's kind of he got ridiculed for it, or maybe he's thinking he's keeping people off his back by saying he's not seen aliens? It's like I'll keep quiet about the aliens if you're open about the technology. Is he trying to strike some deal without even saying it? But it was the fact that they found his craft. he was brought in to back engineer it. He was thought as a well. The story is, from what we can make out, is that they had a lot of well qualified engineers and scientists in there, but they couldn't really work out what was going on, so they were looking for the Maverick to come in, somebody who thinks a little bit different, and that's why they picked him up, because he was doing all these things in the local press, with these jet-powered drag cars and stuff. And he's been brought in to back engineer these craft, and these craft had small seats, seated for small people. I think it's about 3 foot, 4 foot tall. They alluded to the people would have to be to sit in them. Now, if you walk down the corridor and you did see these people, and they are little, and they asked him, he says, they had a nickname for him, didn't they? And he said, yeah. And he says, what?
The kids.
The kids.
The kids, yeah.
That, the morning after I watched it for the first time, just set my mind into overdrive. The kids. Because I just thought, right, one or two things here, if it's true, one or two things. One, the American government are just so out of touch, so full of themselves, that there's these people, these beings come into our world with far superior technology. They're obviously far more advanced than us, and they're belittling them by calling them the kids. It's like, yeah, the kids, we'll sort these out. And it's kind of like proper US bravado, military bravado. So that worried me. And the other thing that worried me is that now I do believe that we've been visited. I do. I think, the amount of planets out there, I think it's impossible to even think that we've not been visited. I mean, Richard Dawkins wrote in The God Delusion that it's for life to happen, for everything to be right and life to happen on the planet, it's like a 1 in a billion chance. There's a billion planets out there, and more, at least a billion. So you do the maths. You know what I mean? That's how many planets I've got life on. And so say it happened, and these people have come, right? They're far more advanced than us. So they've been around for so many years before us. They're far more advanced than us. Why these beings who are far more advanced than us? Why are they crashing? If they're so more advanced, and then I thought, are they crashing because it's actually the kids that are coming to see us? Are these kids of another species that are driving around say, look at this, what's going on? Like we're some kind of zoo, And
they're taking their mum and dad's car.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
going through the monkey bit.
That's it.
Safari Park.
Yeah, that's it. And they're going past us, and they're like laughing at us, and we don't even know we're there because they can hide themselves from whatever engineering, like superior technology they've got. And we don't even see them, and they're just coming in at will all the time. We don't even know they're there. It's the same as like a fish being in the ocean. We can stand above the ocean and look at them and we know they're there, but they've not got a clue what's happening outside the ocean. And it worried me. It did worry me a little bit. I was thinking, are we so primitive? Can we be so primitive? Are we so insignificant that kids are coming here at will and just look at us and laugh at us, and then we're catching them thinking we're great, and we're just sitting ducks at any point in time for anyone. Then again, the Americans have got so superior technology, and then they could be going through Afghanistan, and then someone just pops out from behind the bush and shoots a finger down, shoots one of the missiles, or shoots one of the aircraft down. So it can be done.
Bob also intimates that these crafts might all be, or some of them might be, again, he sort of leaves you to fill the gaps, and I think this is where he sort of left the gap, and for Rogan to fill, and Rogan went a completely different way, and he just ran with it because it doesn't matter what you fill the gap with, he can just go with it and go, oh yeah, go on, and he can just go with it. But he was sort of saying that they were archaeologically discovered.
Well, that was one of them. One of them was found in an archaeological dig. Now, you know what? It's funny you should say that, because that line stuck in my head straight away in the very first documentary I watched. When I watched it the second time, I finished it and I thought, I can't remember that line being in it when I watched it the other night. And I was thinking, have they took that line out? And if they have took out,
which one's that?
About being in one of them being found in an archaeological dig.
It's in the Rogan one. He mentioned it in the Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan mentioned it.
He does definitely mention it in the Bob Lazar Netflix, because I've not seen the Joe Rogan interview.
Jay, you mentioned before regarding shooting crafts down. Obviously, people talk about there could be technology that we don't know about. People say the military could be anything between 50 to 100 years more advanced that we actually know about the technology they're using at the moment. Tesla created a death ray in the 1940s, but America went with the atomic bomb. So when Tesla died, I can't remember in the 40s or 50s when he died, the FBI confiscated all his patents, all his ideas, and started recreating his ideas in labs or across the military in the US. Do you think they could have created something which could actually help shoot these craft down, like a death ray, for example?
Possibly, but it's funny, like you should mention Tesla, because it was said about Tesla that he had, within all his workings, he had the means to create energy for the world for free, and then
Correct.
and then it was taken off him. And it's the kind of thing with Bob. Bob's saying saying exactly the same thing. It's there. We know it's there, but they're not giving it to the world. Why they're not giving it to the world? But it's coming from a different vessel this time.
Bob goes into it on the Rogan podcast, actually.
Does he?
And what he says is, had they gone with Tesla's design and we just started pulling, because this is Bob's excuse for how all these different things that are not connected on the UFO connect to each other. But so Bob says, had they actually gone with that design, we wouldn't have computers now. And Rogan says, why not? And he goes, by putting this energy into the atmosphere and then just drawing off it, yes, you would be able to power light switches and stuff like that, but anything with little tiny fine wires in it would just burn. It's a bit like us if we get hit with a solar flare.
Yeah.
Literally, it would just be like an EMP and all these little. So, in order for microchips and even the early computers to work, you needed these very fine wires, and they would just go pop. And we'd be in the, we'd still be in the Victorian ages. We'd have lights.
We could have gone down a different route.
Yeah,
and we could have gone down a completely different route.
But you physically wouldn't have been able to create. What do you mean a different route? You wouldn't have been able to create electronics.
Yeah, there's not the means, there's not the house, there's not the thing, the conditions to do it, is there? I know what you're saying. I
don't know, because basically with Tesla, he was creating Wi-Fi. Literally, he was lighting up light bulbs, not even touching. So he was doing Wi-Fi. So it could have been a different form of technology.
It wasn't Wi-Fi. He was throwing electric waves up into the air, and who knows what effect that would have had on. But he was just doing it in the confines of a laboratory. What effect would that have had on birds? What effect would that have had on us? They talk about the impact a solar flare will have on us. If that burns out all our electrics and stuff like that, it would literally just everywhere you've got power running in your house, it would just literally set on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Anything
just
would start melting. Yeah. So it just wouldn't work, and that's coming from Bob as well. So if you believe him about UFOs, you got to believe him about that. But again, he's not just invented that off his own mind. He's looked into Tesla and stuff like that. But yeah, it was good that came up on the Rogan thing.
Majestic clearance to work on the craft at Area 51. That's been proven that there is a majestic clearance as well at Area 51, and that's what he said he needed. And also going back to his credentials as his education and stuff and all that. Yeah. This lad had a particle accelerator in his bedroom when he was a teenager. That doesn't strike me as somebody who's not pursuing science.
Did he?
Yeah.
A particle accelerator?
A particle accelerator in his bedroom when he was a teenager. That's what he says.
As in like a bunch of magnets?
I don't know exactly how, but that's what he says. So if that's the case, and I'm not sure whether his mum actually backs that up as well, or whether he gets backed up at all. But if that's the case, then that's not somebody who's not pursuing science at a higher level, is it? Or physics at a higher level. You don't do all that and have a particle accelerator in the bedroom and you're doing jet fueled.
Well, literally a high school student could come up with that sort of technology. I'm not saying he could come up with it.
He had a gift. Basically, he had a gift of science.
they could read something and reproduce it.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, he had a keen interest in it, didn't he? So it's not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like you have people that are into music and they go home and play the piano every day, or someone's into electronics and they build radios. I'm not saying he didn't have none of that, and I'm not saying, I mean, it's documented. There's newspaper, the documents he does have back up the fact that he works with jet engines. Now, is it not more plausible that he was recruited for Area 51 because of his jet technology, right? Because they were, what were they building? They were building jet fighters at Area 51, secret planes, B-52, again documented, again might be where he saw the hand scanner, etc. Was it not more plausible that he went there and he was recruited for jet engines, and that either he came out of working there and thought, oh, I've signed an NDA, so I can't talk about any of that, but what I can do is I can make a story up about UFOs, and I can back it up with other credentials that weren't in my NDA.
It could do.
My NDA.
Yeah,
was he hypnotized by them, and was the story put into his mind so that he forgot what he actually worked on? And this is something that someone's planted in him. And a third option is...
Oh, the hypnotized is just through that's just through me.
Third option for you, Jay, right? I'm gonna recruit you.
Yeah.
For your.
How much am I getting paid?
Millions for your goalkeeping.
I'm in.
Right.
Yeah.
For your goalkeeping, right? Yeah. No, but I want to know if you can keep a secret first. So before you come and work for me, you don't know that I'm putting this test on you, but as a test, before you come and work for me, I'm going to send you to this place where I've got some UFOs mocked up, and I've got some actors, and they will tell you all this stuff, and I'm going to give you mocked up top secret government shit, right? And I want to find out if you then go home and tell anyone about it before I let you on the real goodies, right? This is a test. If you go home and don't tell people that you've just seen a UFO and an alien, you've passed the test. You can now come and work on my top secret jet.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know it wasn't that as well?
Could be. There's no saying that.
Very more plausible than actually seeing aliens.
It's a little bit more that, and it's a little bit more than that. Basically, they do vet people, and they keep people. They tell people little information, and then they just watch them, and they'll probably track your phone calls, track your mail, track who you're talking to. Even they'll probably put people in there to try and extract information out of you. With the Bob Lazar thing, I think Jay mentioned it before. The guy's credible. There's just a few things which I'm not sure about, because obviously the information from his college and Los Alamos, that obviously there's a few things which he says things, they're okay, but there's other things he says which can't be verified, and that's the bit what people don't literally go 100% into the story he believes in.
There's these two other slip-ups that I think I spotted these are in the Rogan podcast, and I know you've not seen it, Jay, but I know Carlos has. Bob talks about how you shouldn't be able to talk to the craft. So he's talking about it. We were told to go outside, and we saw this demonstration, and it was where it just floated and it moved up and left and right and came back and stuff like that. And he says, what was strange to me is the guy was talking to him on the radio, and Rogan says, why is that strange? Why shouldn't he be able to talk to him on the radio? He's only like 20 feet, well, a couple of 100 feet away. And he says, because the craft has got this heart-shaped envelope around it.
Yeah.
The gravity, right?
The force
so
field.
It's got this heart-shaped force field that bends light right round it. And that also, if it bends light, it bends everything. Gravity, light,
but bends space and time, doesn't it? That's what he says. The 115 powers this reactor that he's got in there, and that bends space and time, and he puts it on a tilt, and it allows the craft to go down it.
Sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then it sounds great, right? All if you're to believe it, all sounds plausible. And he says, if you were to walk under it and look straight up, you wouldn't even see it because the light bends around it.
Yeah.
Right? However, at no point in that description of the test flight does he say that it flew directly overhead of him, right? So how does he know what it would look like? Or that he's ever been underneath it while it's been on and he's looked straight up, right? So he's never described it in that way. So based purely on his logic, right? This gravitational envelope, this bubble that's going around the craft, right? Why do you have to just be underneath it for it to be invisible? If it's a bubble bending completely around the craft, then why shouldn't it matter what direction you look at it? Why the light would bend all the way around it? You shouldn't be able to see it from any angle, should you? If you think about it.
I know what you're saying. Again, I am professed to be no expert in physics or science, so someone might be able to explain that differently and counter argue that. But
I'd challenge it. Well, I'd like
yeah.
to see him explain why you can see it from the side, but you can't see it when you look straight up. I would like to see him backtrack and explain that.
But also, when I heard that as well, going back to my point on the kids and saying that are the kids coming and just riding round and looking at us in a zoo and we don't even know they're there. And when I see that, I thought to myself, they've got a force field around them, so we don't even know they're there. You know what I mean? They're invisible to us. They could be right next to us, laughing at us with their ice creams, and we don't even know that they're there.
Well, sticking the second point, right? The second point is a bit later on. He says that he describes putting his hand and his hand gets pushed away. Right? He's talking about the experiment where he's pushing his hand on something and pulling it back. But he's talking to Rogan about it. And he says it's like such an immense. I think they're talking about weaponizing it. And he to quote him, he says you can't penetrate it. It's this unstoppable force. It's gravity. You cannot penetrate gravity, right? But if that was true, if you can't overcome gravity, how come we've got satellites, right? Gravity is actually quite a small force, right? And so you're telling me a projectile couldn't penetrate this gravitational force field? Could it?
Again, I don't know. I can't answer that myself. I've not got the I don't know how to do it, but it doesn't sound like it could.
Right.
But then again, though, Andy, I always go back to when I hear people describe gravity and certain stuff and the way the universe works, and I hear people saying, "Oh, these planets over there, they can't be any life on there because of these conditions," and I think we're all and they say it's the laws of the universe. It's like it's not the laws of the universe. It's our laws what we're making up. You know, it's what we believe. You know, it's what we have taught ourselves to believe. We could be completely wrong on things, but
if they do have this control over gravity and they can make it as Bob describes, an unpenetratable force, right?
Yeah.
Let's give them that, right? How come one of them's shot down? One of them's got a hole in it.
Yeah.
Bob doesn't say so, but he doesn't really say so.
I was going to say that's he's making you. It comes across as there's a hole in it.
Yes.
As if it's been shut down, but he never actually says that it's been shut down.
No, he doesn't actually say it, but he's putting that into your mind. He's doing his trick. He's doing his trick of letting you fill the gaps, right?
Maybe. I mean,
and again,
go on.
Again, so that if we go, here's why it couldn't have been shut down, he'll go, well, I never said it was shut down.
Yeah.
You said it was shut down. I just said it had a hole in. But it's like, nah. I've listened to a few different versions of you tell the tale with the one with the hole in it.
Yeah.
And you're definitely sort of saying it was shot down. I'm not even sure. He might have even said it was shot down in one of his earlier ones. And he might be changing his story again.
Yeah, but again, that can be counter-argued, saying that the actual field that's around it could have failed. And that's the reason why it crashed. And maybe they shot it down when it was already crashing. Or maybe it happened.
It landed and then shot it.
Yeah, it landed then shot it. Or it actually happened when it crashed itself. It caused a hole in it when it hit something.
You can't argue against facts when they're not known, is it?
No, that's it. It's such an open story. It's fascinating, the whole story. That's what I love about this story. There's so many questions unanswered. There's so much put out there to think about, and so many questions that are unanswered. It's just I love speaking about it and thinking about what it can be and obviously what it can't be. I would love to believe this is true. I would love it. And I do. I do believe. I believe in Bob Lazar, in what he's saying. I think he's a believable person. But then again, and I won't be surprised if it's not. If it's all just a made up story. But it just fascinates me, all thing.